An American tourist smeared ketchup on a Royal Guardsman, mocking his silence. She thought it was all fun, until his silent retaliation with a commanding gesture and his horse left her humiliated before a cheering crowd. What followed turned her boldness into the day's biggest joke. But before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. We share the untold stories, secrets, and traditions of the British Guards every day. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. The morning sun bathed Buckingham Palace in golden light, drawing a throng of tourists eager to witness the timeless ritual of the changing of the guard. Cameras clicked, selfie sticks rose like a forest, and chatter filled the square as the iconic red-uniformed guardsmen stood their posts. Among them was one particularly statuesque figure, tall, broad-shouldered, with a posture so perfect it could have been chiseled from stone. His bearskin hat added an air of regality, his gaze fixed on the horizon, unshaken by the chaos around him. A symbol of dignity and tradition amidst the swirling tide of modern absurdity. Then came Karen. She emerged from the crowd like a one-woman hurricane of misplaced confidence, her flip-flops clapping against the pavement with every exaggerated step. Dressed in an oversized I Love London t-shirt that seemed more a declaration of ownership than admiration, and denim shorts that screamed tourist chic, Karen carried her weapon of choice, a massive, sloppy hot dog drenched in ketchup and mustard, its sauce threatening to drip onto the ground with every dramatic gesture. "This guy is just a fancy mannequin," she announced, her voice loud enough to echo across the square. Heads turned. The crowd, a mix of intrigued onlookers and horrified traditionalists, watched as she zeroed in on her target, the stoic guardsman. "You're not even human," she taunted, waving her hot dog in front of his unflinching face like some kind of royal scepter. "Do you blink? Smile? Say cheers. Come on, give us something." The guardsman stood firm, his gaze locked forward, his silence an unspoken rebuke. But Karen wasn't one to back down. To her, this wasn't tradition, it was a stage, and she was the star. She turned to the crowd, seeking validation. "Watch this," she declared, lifting the hot dog high like she'd just invented a new Olympic sport. In a single, audacious motion, she smeared ketchup across the guardsman's immaculate red coat. The gasp from the crowd was almost loud enough to drown out the whisper of a child. Is she allowed to do that? Karen grinned triumphantly, mistaking the horrified silence for applause. "Not so tough now, huh?" she said, turning back to the guardsman, as if expecting him to break character and concede defeat. But he didn't flinch. Not a blink, not a twitch. Yet, for those paying close attention, there was something. A flicker in his eyes, perhaps. A spark of calculation, or maybe a trace of quiet amusement. Whatever it was, Karen missed it entirely, too busy reveling in her supposed victory. The stage was set. The crowd, phones raised and ready, waited with bated breath. And the guardsman? Oh, he was just getting started. Karen, now drunk on her perceived triumph, spun around to face the growing crowd like a performer basking in applause. She spread her arms wide, her ketchup-stained fingers leaving faint red streaks in the air. "This is the best free show in London," she bellowed, her voice carrying with the confidence of someone who thought she owned the square. "I should have brought my TikTok gear." Rummaging through her oversized bag, a chaotic swirl of souvenir keychains, half-eaten snacks, and a rainbow of trinkets, she fished out her phone. "All right, folks," she declared, her voice now tinged with the dramatic flair of a circus ringmaster. "It's Karen versus the Royal Guard. Let's see what it takes to make him crack." She stepped closer to the guardsman, her flip-flops slapping against the pavement like an uninvited drum roll. Her grin was as wide as the River Thames, as if the stoic soldier were merely a prop in her one-woman comedy act. The crowd began to shift. Some whispered, their voices laced with concern. "Is she serious?" Others shook their heads, muttering about how far some people would go for attention. Karen, oblivious, leaned in so close that she could have counted the buttons on the guard's tunic. She waved her hands dramatically in front of his face, contorted her features into exaggerated expressions, and even attempted a curtsy so clumsy it bordered on parody. "Come on, Mr. Royal Stiff," she teased, pulling a feather boa from her bag and draping it over his shoulder. "Loosen up, would you?" The guardsman didn't so much as blink. His stillness only fueled her. Karen's gaze fell on the ceremonial rifle resting at his side. With a mischievous glint in her eye, she reached toward it. "And what's this?" she quipped loudly. "A fake gun? What are you gonna do, point it at me?" And then it happened. The guardsman's foot shifted, just slightly, barely perceptible. But it was enough. The crowd gasped. Karen froze, mid-laugh, her confidence wobbling for the first time. Did you just move?" she stammered, stepping back slightly, but her hesitation didn't last long. Mistaking the moment for her ultimate victory, she raised her arms in triumph. "I knew it!" she shouted, grinning wildly. "You're not made of stone after all." The guardsman remained silent, his gaze unwavering. Yet something about him now felt different, more commanding, more intentional. The crowd, sensing a shift in the air, leaned in. Karen, ever the oblivious showwoman, doubled down. But little did she know, the real show was just beginning. The guardsman finally acted, but not in the way Karen expected. With a sharp, precise movement, he raised his gloved hand and signaled toward his horse. The massive black stallion, until now as calm and still as its rider, responded immediately. It let out a loud, commanding neigh, stomping its hoof in a perfect display of synchronized authority. Karen shrieked, stumbling backward and dropping her phone. The crowd erupted in laughter as the live stream continued, now showing nothing but a chaotic view of Karen scrambling on the ground. "Was that planned?" someone asked, unable to contain their amusement. The guardsman lowered his hand and resumed his stance as if nothing had happened. His face betrayed no emotion, but the crowd was convinced. This was his way of fighting back without breaking a single rule. Karen, now covered in ketchup from her own spilled hot dog, clumsily picked up her phone. "That's not fair," she yelled at the guardsman, her voice cracking with frustration. "You can't just use your horse against me." The guardsman remained silent, his gaze fixed forward, as if she didn't exist. The crowd, however, was on his side, cheering and clapping for the display. Karen, humiliated but not ready to give up, turned to the crowd in a desperate attempt to regain their support. "He's just a guy in a silly hat. You all think this is funny, but it's—" Before she could finish, a stern figure in a police uniform approached. "Ma'am," the officer said firmly, "you've violated several codes of conduct, including defacing royal property." Karen's face turned pale. "Defacing? It's just ketchup," she stammered. The officer's expression didn't soften. "Ketchup or not, this is a serious matter. You'll need to come with me." The crowd parted as Karen was escorted away, muttering protests that fell on deaf ears. The guardsman remained in his position, unshaken and unbothered, a true professional. As Karen disappeared from view, the crowd erupted into applause, their admiration for the guardsman growing tenfold. And as the sun continued to shine on Buckingham Palace, the guardsman allowed himself a single, imperceptible smile. The chaos had passed, and his post remained untarnished. Well, aside from the ketchup, but that was someone else's problem now. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like and let us know in the comments which guard tradition you'd like us to cover next. See you in the next video.